The doors to the castle burst open, letting the light of the outside shine in. The sinister figure smiled, drooling in anticipation and excitement as she greeted the hero. The demon lord Callie welcomes him, who is brave enough to come and challenge her. While she praises his courage, it is but a foolish act that will ultimately end his life. Just then, a heavy metal sword falls to the ground, clanging against the cold ground. She suddenly turns grim, surprised by the unexpected action. A fight was expected, but she's greeted with tired pleas as the hero cries in exhaustion, asking her to take his life right then and there. Soon after, she ends up comforting him on her lap, saying he shouldn't throw his life away after a rough patch. That said, she can't help but consider the humans cruel for sending a teenager to fight against her. His face is ridden with weariness and pain, having been snatched out of a different world to protect a dumb king. For no particular reason, Callie has decided to care for the handsome hero. While he lay on the bed, she sat beside him, contemplating her decision. She's the sworn enemy of the humans, so it's counterintuitive to help the one supposed to kill her. The hero slowly opened his eyes, waking up and asking where he was. He smiles in satisfaction, thinking he's finally died and reached paradise. Seeing her beside him, he panics and asks if she also died for some reason. As she says that they're both still alive, he asks where he is. They're in one of the rooms of her castle, and she carried him there after he cried and fell asleep. Wondering what her plan was, he was told that she had no intention of killing him for now. Surprisingly, this seems to disappoint him more than anything else. Under the moonlight, Callie walked back to her throne, thinking about the odd hero. She doesn't even know his name yet, but is certain that there's something wrong. Or maybe something is wrong with her. Blushing while walking around, she looks up and finds the hero outside, looking far with blank eyes. She asks if he's enjoying the night sky's stars. As she joins him, he says it reminds him of one of his friends. After accompanying him in silence, she plucks up the courage and turns to him. She asks the hero what people call him. Aside from hero, most people call him spiteful words like monster, useless, or just plain hey. Hurriedly clarifying that she's asking for his name, he replies with Ito. Facing the stars, she says she has an offer for Ito. However, hearing her words suddenly made him freeze and tear up. This takes her by surprise, and she asks why he was crying all of a sudden. It turns out, he's only been called by his name twice in this world, and hearing it now makes him happy. Seeing him like this, she can't help but turn away and feel pity. She starts to call him hero, but stops herself and calls his name instead. Callie spread her wings and smiled confidently. At that point, she declared that starting that day, he would live in her castle and become her bodyguard. As such, everyone will call him by his name henceforth. The darkness in his eyes slowly began to regain its light, looking up at the graceful and benevolent demon lord, who promised that he'd be happy there. For the second time, the wounded heart began to heal ever so slightly. Callie walked with Ito, saying he can roam as a new human ally, as demons don't know his face. The statement surprises him, not expecting there to be other human allies aside from him. In addition to himself, there are 3 more in the army, who are in the human kingdom as spies. While speaking to him, she notices something and says there's one more thing to settle. His clothes are beaten and tattered, basically falling off his body. She wonders how many times he's changed his clothes, but he says he has never done so in the 2 years since he came to that world. He corrects her, explaining that he arrived half a year earlier, but spent that time chained and being experimented on. After that, the king gave him so many quests that he had no time to change his clothes. Riddled with tasks, he couldn't even take a bath, and was constantly on the brink of death. They continued to walk in silence, and all Callie could feel was pity for the poor boy. Tearing up, she decides to give him new clothes and a bath to get rid of the god-awful stench coming out of his body. Having decided that it's time to get Ito new clothes, Callie screams out and calls for Sabet, asking if she's there. In an instant, another demon, dressed as a maid, appears to answer her master's call. With a bright but oddly devious smile, she asks if there's anything she must do. Apologizing for bothering her, the demon lord introduces the two, calling the woman her personal maid and friend. After a polite curtsy, she looks Ito in the eye. Holding his face, she says he looks nice but weak, and correctly guesses that he must be human. Without turning to the lord, she asks if he would even last a minute, confusing the master. Making obscene movements with her hands, Sabet says she's talking about what a 500-year-old woman needs. With her eyes closed, she tells Callie to hurry up, unless she wants to die pure and untouched. Or worse, she might even steal the boy from under him. The master pulls Ito away from the maid, saying she's going to cut her salary down to negative. Stunned and in disbelief, Sabet freezes her fingers. Following the orders of the demon lord, Sabet thinks about the clothes she can get for Ito. However, they don't have clothes that will fit him, but maybe the lord's brother will. The maid ponders the idea, but suddenly bites on her lip. blushing at the thought of something bad. She's scolded instantly, and the hero is turned away and told not to listen to her. They soon reach the storage area, which is basically a dark room they have to rummage around in. The pile of clothes is unending, and they all belong to Kelly's brother. His girlfriend, Emmy, likes dressing him up like a doll, which is why there are endless clothes. That said, it's okay to take them without his permission, since all he wears is the black coat gifted by his sister. Sabet cuts through their conversation, saying she found something. Ito is quickly told to try it on, and he follows instructions without being able to do much. However, the two ladies froze in stunned silence, staring at him. Their looks confuse him, seemingly unaware of the countless scars covering his body. As demons consider it rude to ask about such things, the two remain silent despite their curiosity. After a while, he finds himself dressed in brand new clothes, looking much nicer than before. Sabet makes another inappropriate comment, earning herself an additional salary cut. Going on with their work as usual, Sabet approached Callie and asked if she knew where Ito got all his scars. Continuing to work, she says it's hard to say where he got some of his scars. That said, it's obvious that he's fought against countless monsters in his time there. Not even a demon can survive that many wounds, and even then, their mind would be a wreck. She knows it must not be easy, especially since he's fought against her little brother before. Surprised, Sabet asks her to confirm what she just said, feeling like she misheard. It's as the demon lord said, certain that only her brother could leave some of the scars on Io's body. The fact that the hero survived against him is even more surprising, more so as he's just a human. The maid's pupils shake, remembering that her brother is returning to the castle that day. As if on cue, the hero freezes along the halls, having run into Noah, who's equally confused and perplexed about his presence. Exchanging looks, the demon orders him to immediately call his sword, reminding the hero of the promise he's supposed to keep if they meet again. Returning his smile, Ito says he remembers well, and calls on his sword, Sagi, which bolted to his hand in a flash. Eager to start, his face is beaten, but his eyes and smirk show an undeniable trace of life. The two warriors reach a nice spot outside, and decide to settle their deal there. The two count down, and Ito's outstretched hand calls on Sagi, who was shaking in anticipation. Answering its master's call, the sword quickly turned and launched itself at them. Noah jumped up, riding the blade with impressive balance. As he struggles to stay upright, he warns the hero, telling him to watch out. On the other hand, Ito simply watched in surprise as he and the weapon zoomed in his direction. It clanged to the ground, leaving the two young men panting and lying down after a near-death encounter. After a while, Noah couldn't help but let his laugh out. Cackling, he says the hero didn't even try to dodge the speeding blade. As he's unable to stop laughing, Ito thought about it for a while, and similarly burst into a fit of giggling. The two boys cheered this moment, and later on, the demon reached out to the human's shoulder. Smiling purely, he says he's really glad that he's alive. These words made him emotional, and once he noticed himself, the hero's tears fell completely. While Noah made fun of him, two sets of eyes secretly watched from nearby. They're unable to believe that the boys are friends when, just 2 months ago, they nearly killed each other. Without much of an explanation, they chalk it up to boys being weird. Lying on his bed with his blade, Ito recalls Noah's words, saying he didn't even try to dodge a blade that was speeding right at him. After that, the image of the demon, saying he's glad he's alive, was embedded in his mind. In addition to this, there was also Callie, who graciously gave him a place beside her. He believes he doesn't deserve it, but because of them, the tired hero wants to try living again. That said, he has no idea how he's going to do it. After years of living in sadness, his mother once said that a living person is a happy person. Thinking about it for a long while, he ends up stumped. There are no methods in his brain that would allow such a happy life. The sword hummed, and its red gem glowed as if replying to his words. He sees his little sister, feeding a small monster, and telling him that happiness comes from giving, not receiving. Her smile, which was completed with a missing tooth, showed how happy she was to feed the creature. Realizing that Sagi is right, he got up and walked to the window. There, he climbed up the railing and, whether intentional or not, fell to the ground from a floor up. Another demon maid, who was hanging the laundry to dry, screamed in surprise and asked if he was okay. Meanwhile, Sabet looked at the scene unfolding in shock. Unmoving, she watched as Io spoke to the maid. Sparks seemed to fly in the air. Seeing the demon blush and smile, she sets out to warn the demon lord who might lose her boy. The situation becomes even more dire as she sees the maid touch the human's shoulder. With a blank face, Callie calls to Sabet, wondering if all she did was really necessary. With a determined gaze, the maid says it absolutely was. Considering how Ito was all tied up to a chair, she scolds her friend. She shakes the demon lord around, saying her boy was almost taken by another girl. Looking at her begrudgingly, she calls the ruler naive despite her position. She's threatened by another salary cut, but something that doesn't exist can no longer be cut. Io has lived in their castle for just 2 weeks, but has already amassed a fan club of maids. Hearing this, Callie finally understands the situation and changes her attitude. The two women, raging silently, glared at him, and Savit recalls hearing something about castration. Since he won't need those parts, the demon lord accepts the suggestion and looks for the scissors. As they also look for a sword, the young man panics. Meanwhile, Noah and his girlfriend were offering flowers at a grave, when Noah suddenly felt something odd in the air. Standing up in a rush, he announced that he had to go, as his friend needed his help. He quickly made his way to Io, quietly sneaking beside him while the ladies were looking for a sword. As he struggled to untie the ropes binding his friend, the hero questioned why he was even in the situation. Without any other option, Noah dragged the chair away with his friend on it, doing his best to remain unnoticed. While walking around the castle, Callie comes across Ito, who was standing idly in the hallway. Asked what he was looking at, he barely acknowledges her, not even turning her way. In front of him was a poster of the fireworks festival, which he didn't know demons celebrated. It's a holiday involving all races on the continent, to remember the ones who are no longer with them in the world. Noticing his expression, she subtly turns to look at the longing written all over her face. After hesitating for a moment, she asks if he would like to go to the festival together. He starts to refuse, saying he's her bodyguard and should be by her side in the castle. Since it's a pretty logical way of putting things, the demon lord can't argue much. Looking down, she sees his fist holding a piece of paper, which is likely a personal recipe for fireworks. Since he really wants to go, but is unwilling to leave her side, then she should just attend with him. Seeing his subtle smile, she blushes, realizing that it will look like she's asking him out on a date. Diving into it while turning beet red, she asks if he wants to go with her. He also turns red as she goes on about wanting to attend the festival as well, and would like to be with him. The young man is surprised, more so when she says that they first have to give his recipe to the fireworks master. Meanwhile, the 3 other demons are watching in secret, surprised at the unexpected initiative from Callie. With this, they start an operation right at that moment, intending to get Callie and Ito together. After walking in the demon territory for a while, Callie and Ito reach Hang, a demon that's much older. The fireworks master turns her head to greet her lord. Told that they want to order fireworks for the festival, she asks if they have a recipe prepared. She's handed a piece of paper that's crumpled and stained by the passage of time. Staring at it for a while, she says she's worked for 500,000 years, but it's been a long time since she made something for a human. As Io thanks her with a smile, he's cut off, as the old woman suddenly swings up with a blade, moving faster than he could even react. He turns to Callie, tearing up from the pain, and is told that demons use bodily fluids for pyrotechnics. Excited for what'll happen, the master looks at the human, who is pathetically whimpering as the demon lord blew on his finger. She asks the children if they know how demons started to celebrate the fireworks festival. As Ito goes on about how the first human king instructed his subjects 500,000 years ago, Hang cut him off. Apparently, that story was made by humans for dumb humans, as they always try to appropriate demon accomplishments. From then on, she set out to tell him the true story about the origin of the fireworks festival. The story began a long time ago, when the continent was still a peaceful place. Back then, Hang lay on top of fresh grass, enjoying the silence and looking up at the stars. She reached out to them longingly, hoping that they could come just a tiny bit closer. Just then, a bright flash of light shot across the sky, and exploded after reaching its peak, scattering a brilliant array of flares in the night. As she wished it was so much closer than the stars. Intrigued, she got right up, running deep into the forest and following the direction it came from. Driven by the need to see it even closer, she ran and ran, desiring to somehow touch the light. Finally, she stopped, panting and sweating, but finally reaching her goal. There, she saw a human, cursing in frustration as the firework wasn't bright enough for his standards. From that very moment, it was like love at first sight, and she couldn't help but blush. Becoming acquainted with the human, Hang excitedly asks about the flashy thing she saw in the sky. Upon her requests, he gets all fired up, saying it's his ultimate goal in life to create firework. In particular, one that will shine brighter than the stars themselves, so much so that his mother will see, no matter how far she is. Maybe even those from other worlds will be able to see. The demon girl admired his ambition like a beloved tale, mixing imagination with real life. Smiling foolishly, he asked if it sounded ridiculous. On the contrary, his determined look impressed her, and she could do no less than believe him. Holding his face and coming close, she promised that it didn't sound foolish. In fact, she found it incredibly brave. More than that, it's wonderfully unique to aim for something extraordinary in their boring, everyday life. As such, she asks that he let her stay by his side, where his dreams unfold like stars in the night. Wanting to share in the journey as they become reality, she asks that he allow her to love him with each heartbeat until her last breath. Hundreds of millennia ago, a young demon asked her mother why stars shine every night, and if they grow tired. The mother described the stars as special friends who never got tired of making people happy. Because of this, they'd put on their brightest and shiniest outfit every night, just for those watching. Caressing her daughter, she says they twinkle and shine to make them feel safe and happy. The child persists, asking why they don't take a break. They're always up there, like guardians of the night sky, who want to be there no matter when it is. It's their way of saying that even when things get dark, there's always a little bit of light to guide them. Recalling her mother, Hang believes she's found the brightest star, which was the brilliant man Izumi in front of her. Considering him her own star, she says his eyes are full of hope. Watching him work hard for his ideals, she found that he was also strong, and being with him, she realized that she wants to help him with all that she can. Unfortunately, she can't help him with a lot, simply caring for him throughout their days. As his wife, she just does her best to support him with all her strength. After all, he is her dear star. Years later, they walked together, and Izumi, who had grown old, leaned on her. They sat by a tree, where he looked at his final creation in satisfaction, regarding it as a true firework. He coughed and wheezed, making her worry. Allowing him to lean on a tree for now, she asks that he stop moving around so much. She basically scolds him, having repeatedly warned him against forcing himself all the time. He looks weak, but his eyes are as brilliant as before when he apologizes for making her worry. While she thanks him for the apology, she blushes as he thanks her for everything she's done. Turning away out of embarrassment, Hang rested her head on his shoulder, sharing that moment with her beloved. Recalling his life in his original world, Izumi thought about his mother, who was always smiling when she looked at firework. Back then, he was a child, but remembered his mother's smile to be brighter than any pyrotechnic in the world. However, he often wondered what it would take to make her look at him in the same way she looked at those fireworks. He teared up, only remembering the pain brought by the hands around his neck. Maybe, if he could make the brightest firework in the world, something would change. As the hands clenched tighter, his vision grew darker. Maybe, if he achieved something, she would look at him with as much love as she could. The fuse ignited and the rocket flew into the sky, exploding soon after to illuminate the night sky. Hang's smile was so bright that she could almost rival the actual flares. Looking at his best creation, and seated beside the love of his life, Izumi smiled in satisfaction. As more explosions came, the brightness prolonged, and he took the chance to stare at his beloved's face, writing something down on a piece of paper. As his vision and hearing blurred, Hang called and finally turned to him with the widest smile he had ever seen. Looking at her eyes and mouth, he heard her call his name for the last time. When the final firework blew, her smile dropped and her eyes lost their light. Just like that, the night was dark again, and so was her world. She quivered, seeing his lifeless body staring at her, smiling at his final moments as he finally achieved his dream. Unable to react for a moment, she eventually reached out and took the parchment he wrote on. There, he thanked her for every moment spent together and asked that she make a firework with his ashes. The look on her face did not change for a long time, even as she was cremating his body to make ash. Her hand shook, struggling to shovel what remained of her loved one into a shovel. The same empty expression covered her face as she made the firework, granting Izumi's cruel last wish. Finally, she positioned it on the ground and lit the wick. She looked down, expressionless, as she waited for the fuse to blow. After a while, the rockets lit up and shot to the sky. They blew one by one, scattering her loved one's ashes. The sky was bright, lit by the fireworks and the countless stars. However, none of them could overcome the darkness masking Hang's face. Finally, she reached up, trembling, and screamed her anguish out into the night sky. Tears fell like an endless rain, and grief took over her completely. She stopped after a while, remembering Izumi telling her a story about his people lighting up a ton of fireworks once a year. During that time, his mother's happiness was at its peak, so seeing that made him happy too. As such, when he sees fireworks, he remembers his mother. It sounds stupid at first, but at least in some way, he has a way to remember his only family's face. The old master ends her story, saying the festival day helps demons remember the faces of those they once loved. Such people might have died a long time ago, but the scene they looked at together will remind them of their faces. To keep the person they lost a long time ago, they should keep the recipe of the firework they watched together. After all, its bright light should be able to bring a life back, even just for a moment while it illuminates the sky. With this, she hands Io his firework, and he feels the weight of what it symbolizes much more. Following the master's words, he wonders if he can see his teacher again. The hero remembers her voice, calling him an idiot and asking who he was. Calling to his friend and dear girlfriend, No announces that they'll begin the operation tomorrow. Poking around a chalkboard, he draws a step-by-step instruction, with their main goal set as Ito and Callie getting together at the end of the night. It's a depiction vulgar enough to make Emmy blush, but Save It supports it fully. However, they have one big and glaring problem, which is the fact that they don't want to end up together. To address this, they need to understand the root cause of the problem, so he asks for ideas. The maid suggests that Callie might not just be fond of how big Ito is. Thinking about it for a while, Noah oddly rejects the idea outright. For him, it's because the hero looks like a burnt matchstick, so they have to make him more kissable. Quickly turning to Emmy, he asks for her help with this particular task, which takes her by surprise. He throws her out, telling her to find Io crying by a wall somewhere, and make him more attractive. In the night sky, Anti, the hero's teacher, once called out, addressing him as an idiotic boy. As he brightly argues that he has a name, she looks at him dead in the eye, and brashly asks who he is. Momentarily confused by the question, Ito thinks about it for a while, and soon raises his hands in determination, saying he's the hero who will kill the demon lord and save human lives. His answer makes her sigh, slightly judging her idiotic student. Trying to hold her laugh in, she fails within moments and insultingly cackles out loud. Slightly offended, he asks for an explanation for the outburst, but she brushes it off and continues to laugh. Back in the demon lord's castle, Emmy stomped across the halls, questioning why he has to make the human kissable. She stops, haunted by the sight of Noah's injured body, which was the result of his battle with the hero. Hating him with all her soul, she curses, her annoyance fueled as she can't find him in the huge castle. Nearly tearing her own hair off, she suddenly hears a droning groan echoing in the halls. Turning to her side, she finally sees her target standing alone pathetically. Ito recalls his memories with his master, with whom he shared precious moments. The night of the fireworks festival comes, and the group from the Demon Lord's castle wanders around. With everyone dressed up and the streets filled with lights, Ito emerged with a brand new haircut. Although his face looks much brighter, his expression remains to be the same brooding stare. He keeps on remembering his master, who brashly asked who he was. His thoughts are interrupted as someone calls his name. Turning to face the source of the voice, he stares in shock and wonder as he sees Callie, who looks strikingly beautiful when dressed in a full yukata. The Demon Lord is equally surprised, not expecting to see him with a brand new hairstyle. Confirming the abrupt change, he shares how her brother's girlfriend cut his hair. For some reason, this irks her, so much so that she curses Emmy. Taken aback by the hostility, Ito starts to ask why, but Callie cuts the conversation, saying she doesn't want to talk about her, and drags him away. Allowing himself to be pulled, they pass by Emmy, who watches silently from the side. As Callie dragged Ito by the collar, Emmy watched from the stalls, not uttering a single word despite seeing them. While cutting the hero's hair, she was just as silent, thinking only of the time Noah came back after their fight, hanging on to life by a thread. She put the scissors near his neck, tempted to end things right then and there. While he was wondering if he should say something, she was contemplating killing him. Deciding to talk, Ito shares how his big sister used to cut his hair like she is now. He was about to say something about his home world, but quickly patched it up with a veiled lie. His eyes trembled, nearly exposing his identity as the hero. However, despite all this, silence came to them once more. Finally, she spoke, asking if no one ever cut his hair, ever since he became an adventurer. It isn't exactly that, as his former master, and some used to call him Big Brother, did. He remembers their smiles, bright and full of warmth, enough to share with him. Unfortunately, everything changed one night, and his sister ended up dying a tragic death. Meanwhile, his master died holding his hand, and looking into his eyes with a comforting smile. Hearing this, Emmy couldn't stop her tears from flowing, but she denies ever doing so. With this, she resumed cutting his hair skillfully. When they found Noah after his fight with the hero, he couldn't even eat without help, but said his opponent was just as badly injured as he was. While Noah had them, she couldn't believe that Io was all alone, with no one to tend to his wounds and pain. She knows exactly how it feels to be alone, and to have nobody to turn to. She's an elf in the Demon Lord's castle, and she has cut ears, which is a sign of disgrace for both demons and elves. He dared to touch someone who loved her despite this flaw. While Noah might have forgiven him, even saying he was glad he's alive, she couldn't do the same so easily. Just then, her boyfriend appeared, interrupting her dark thoughts and scaring her all of a sudden. This earns him a hard punch to the head, but manages to stop her ill will. Holding hands as they walked through the festival, Emmy and Noah shared a wonderful time together. She turned to face her boyfriend and stared at his tattered ear. He suddenly called to her, taking the girl by surprise. Even more bewildering is that he praises her for making Ito kissable, to the point that even he was tempted. With a charming smile, he thanks her sincerely. He's well aware of how much she hates humans, but she still did it for him, which he really appreciates. The timid girl blushes, not expecting such heartfelt praise. She remembers the time she was captured by humans, who once wondered what elf ears taste like. Kidnapped and with a poor family, she had no chance, so they decided to have a taste instead. As they were about to cut, a boy's voice rang out, telling them not to touch a single hair on her. They smirk, having forgotten about him. Chained up, he was caught with the other demons near the territory borders. They looked at Noah, who glared at them with seething rage, and promised not to hurt her. However, they still wanted something to eat, so they decided to cut off his ears instead. Similar to elves, it's a source of shame for demons to have cut ears. Putting her face in front of his, they asked if he's willing to accept that shame. For an unknown and orphaned elf, his family is ready to buy him back, so they urge him to think about how disappointed they would be. The young demon cuts them off, taught by his father that a demon's role in the world is to help weak creatures, even if it takes his honor, even if it hurts, and even if he has to refuse himself. He will clench his teeth and take the pain silently. Tears overflowed from Emmy's eyes, unable to believe the kindness being shown to her. Now she blushed at the memory and happily clung to the same boy, now all grown up. Callie brings Ito to a spot above the festival booths, saying it'll have the best view of the fireworks. As the show will start soon, they crouch down to wait for a while. While waiting, they look up the stars and see a few of them fly across the night sky. Looking at the hero's calm face, the demon lord remembers the time they first met. His cries for help still ring clearly in her ears, asking her to take his life. Consumed by curiosity, she asks why he wanted his life to end back then. After thinking about it for a moment, he answers, back then, he felt like he was at the bottom of a clogged toilet. He didn't know anything about this world, so he decided to trust those who brought him there. When it started to look like he finally understood how things worked, he lost people who were dear to him. Understanding the relationship between humans and demons, he grew to hate himself and vomited at his reflection. Awkwardly rubbing his head, he says it doesn't sound heroic at all. Getting an idea of the weight on his shoulders, Callie asks if he knows that he doesn't need to be a hero. Realization sets in like a shock of electricity, more so when she asks if he wants to be a hero. He had never considered the idea, and now was told that he had a choice. Even in his original world, Ito was called a hero, but for a completely different reason. His older sister, Yuna, called him a hero and gratefully praised his cooking. He says there's no need for thanks, as she's working 2 jobs because of him. In the end, cooking is nothing compared to what she does for him every day. Hugging the cute boy, she says she's just doing her job as his sister, and is sad she can't do more. That said, she's about to make a breakthrough with her research, and should begin raking money in. It's been tough since their parents died, but there's no need to worry, as she promises to take care of everything they'll need. Just then, a green light shimmered across their room. To her shock, her brother's body was dissipating, as if being consumed by the green light that appeared out of nowhere. Neither of them knew what was happening, and before either could react, Io was gone forever. While she was left alone, he appeared in the middle of the human kingdom's castle. The king smiled, greeting the dear hero and saying he's been given the honor of saving his kingdom. While the boy cried, he told him to rejoice, as his life would finally be given meaning and purpose. Ito froze, not understanding what just happened to him, and not knowing where he was. Ito wailed in suffering, wounded, beaten, and mentally broken after all the things they put him through. Above him was a mad doctor, who conducted endless experiments with the help of magic healers. As screaming filled the room, the king smiled on his throne. Anti asked for an explanation, wanting to know the point of all he's doing. Also, why does he think that, after all he put the hero through, will he still choose to save their kingdom? The ruler has thought it all out, and planned the idea that he was kidnapped by demons instead. Moreover, they aren't being so cruel for nothing, and are rooted in a discovery they found in his mana hearth. Upon checking, they found that he has a rare dark mana hearth, which is the very same one as the former hero, who successfully slayed dragons. His physical pain, hate towards the target, and mental state all contribute to his unlimited power. With fiery determination, the king beamed, convinced that he can finally protect his kingdom. As the boy is still a teen, they can easily wash his mind and make him their little killer. Having finished with their experiments, the soldiers are told to lift the boy, as it's time to train him in battle. When they're done, he'll believe everything the king says and indoctrinate him with hatred for demons. Since he's young, his psyche is unstable enough to take control of. With skilled healers, they'll save him whenever he takes serious damage. They can only imagine the fear in his body, as he was suddenly taken from his family. and was left alone and in pain. Now he is thrown into an arena against a goblin thrice his size. Every day he thinks demons make him suffer just for fun. Barely able to stand, he quivers and turns to the doctor, asking what he's supposed to do. Promising to keep him alive despite injuries, he's told that he'll be set free once he kills it. He won't die, but they will break him again and again, until he becomes the ideal soldier, or as some would call it, the hero. In the enclosed arena, a small body is sent flying. Ito crashes into the gate, and his body can barely take all the pain and beating. It hurts, but the goblin keeps on kicking him around. While breaking his bones and getting new wounds, the healers work simultaneously, saving him from the brink of death. They struggle to keep up, endlessly spouting incantations to keep him alive. His vision dims and pain takes over, but he's forced to keep living despite it all. He begs them to stop again and again. He wishes for a reprieve. Soon enough, his mind is broken and his face is blank, as all that's left there is the pain of every moment. He remembers his sister, telling him not to worry. Opening his eyes as he remembered her, his thoughts are cut as he's sent flying once more. Yun is probably worrying about him right now, and this thought alone reminds him that he should do his best to return home. The beating doesn't stop, but one day he managed to get an audience with the king and express his wish to go home. The ruler smiles and says he doesn't have the power to send him back. However, he knows exactly who can. Brought back to the arena, he remembers this encounter and raises his head at the thought of the demon lord. Since he can't die there, he suddenly began smiling and cackling maniacally, shouting that it's like a video game. Everything hurts, but his desire to go home has eaten him alive, and he's decided to kill the goblin, no matter how many tries it takes. Like a raging monster, he charged in to kill the enemy. His entire body is hurting, but after doing what needs to be done, he'll earn his freedom, no matter how painful it is, kill the demon lord and return to his sister. For that, he will become the hero. Clenching his scar-covered fists, Ito answers Callie and says he doesn't know. He tried to be a hero, like the dragon slayer who saved humanity. He remembers the tragic deaths of Anti and Sagi. Unfortunately, despite his efforts, he failed and couldn't even save those who were dear to him. When he tries to be a hero, innocent demons suffer by his hands. But abandoning this duty means abandoning humans. Whatever he chooses to do, someone will end up suffering because of him. Callie agrees with that statement, accepting it as a fact of life, but he cannot make everyone happy. That said, in her opinion, when he gets old after a few decades, what's important is to live life in a way that leaves him with no regrets. At that moment, the fireworks finally went off, illuminating the night sky with countless flares. No matter which path he chooses, someone will suffer, but it's his short life, and he isn't in charge of everyone else. A green firework shot up in the sky, reminiscent of his master, filling his eyes with wonder. Walking around the kingdom, Anti accompanied the king and expressed how she felt wrong. Ito was just a kid, and she could personally make him strong without all the torture. However, the ruler argues that they need to defeat the demon lord now, as humans multiply too fast. There are approximately 11 million humans, procreating the fastest out of all races. Soon, they will not fit on their land, but the demons have a lot of space, despite having a far smaller population. He simply wants to take some of the land they aren't using. Given their painful history, the demons even close trading routes, dooming their economy. Lastly, they need resources and must end the war as soon as possible. If saving his people is a one-way ticket to hell, then he will gladly go there for their sake. Calling to Anti, he recalls an old memory and says her son would be Ito's age by now. She freezes at the topic. Waking up from the memory, she sees Ito quarreling with Sagi over a piece of fruit. He cried for the teacher's help as the little child bit him out of anger. Watching them, her eyes turn empty. A monster had invaded the town and was seconds away from killing a family. Ito arrived just in time, slaying it in an instant and saving the mother and child. The stress from his mana broke his sword, making it shatter into pieces. Not minding it for now, he asks the civilians if they're okay, smiling as he offers to take care of them. However, the mother hid his hand away, refusing to even be touched. It's impossible for a human to defeat the monster in one hit, so she accuses him of being a monster as well. As his master and sister watched from behind, the hero apologized despite saving them. Later on, Anti handed Ito a new sword to replace the broken one, saying it's brand new. Since it's the fourth sword that week, she urges him to work on his mana control to avoid such incidents later on. He apologizes again, but she just lightly ruffles his hair, saying she was also troublesome at his age. Looking at his expression, she remembers how the mother reacted to him earlier and speaks seriously to the poor child, saying she was in shock and shouldn't be taken seriously. The boy says he doesn't care about that and says his only goal is to get back home. That said, he wonders why people keep on calling him a monster, since the mother wasn't the first one. Turning grim, Stumped by the situation and having to act like an adult, she struggles to think of an answer. Unable to find the right one, she laughs it off and smacks him on the back, saying it's the firework festival the next day. Anti once told Ito to make them a firework to remember them by. Once he returns to his world, as she gave him a recipe, a green flash of light lit the sky. Giving a pained smile, she says they'll miss him, if that ever happens. Acting as their only adult figure, the teacher often playfully ruffled their hair. They shared countless precious moments, and in all honesty, Ito just wanted to return to his home. However, for some reason he couldn't understand, it all ended in a tragedy. The only thing he's sure of is that he doesn't want his beloved sister to see, instead of her brother, a monster born out of pain. While thinking about his sister, Ito tries to make peace with the fact that he can't return to her or their world anymore. He was so focused on his past life that he failed to see what he had in his new one. He didn't realize how happy he was with his master and little sister until he lost them both. Now, the young hero is absolutely terrified as he's chosen to walk away. Back then, he didn't know what was waiting for him in the future. Now Callie is pounding some sense into him, saying he can do whatever he wants without being responsible for others. Even his old master asked him who he was. Years after, he still doesn't know, but he will try to figure out what he wants to be. The sound of endless typing filled a room. A woman with long hair planted herself by her laptop, pausing only to shake the ash off her cigarette. As the two shared their moment by the cliff, an odd silhouette slowly made its way to them. It's the ridiculous trio who planned the entire operation, ending it by blinding and pushing them together. The final goal was still the same, and now there was very little left to do. As they counted down, a firm hand suddenly held Noah's shoulder, and he shuddered in fear as he heard a voice, telling them to let the adults talk. Stammering, the young demon froze, recognizing his uncle's voice. He knew they would forgive humans despite everything, but forgiving the hero himself was beyond expectations. When they accepted 3 humans into their army, he said nothing, but this crosses the line. The two felt intense, killing intent wrapping around them, mainly directed at the hero. A demon's role in the world is simple. Ordered by the great goddess, they are to protect those who need to be protected. Despite seeing humans wipe dragons up 2,000 years ago, most of them deserve mercy. That is, except for him. Ito feels his head get separated from his body in an instant, unable to even react. Fortunately, Callie's hand protects him, stopping this from happening. As she covered his neck, realization hit, and he began to sweat, panting hard as his heart went into overdrive. Callie is holding the blade still, stopping it inches away from his neck as her uncle struggles to drive it through. Smiling, the demon raised his head, looking exactly like his niece and nephew. Struggling to continue his swing with Callie holding the blade, the demon looked up to meet her eyes with a smile. Staring right back at him, the demon lord orders her uncle to back off. Without flinching, he keeps his eyes on her, and she quickly understands that he has no intention of letting this go. Meanwhile, Io remains still, knowing full well that the demon behind him can take his life in one move. The hero remembers pointing his sword at a young demon, who raised his arms in surrender, begging for mercy. However, no one was spared from his onslaught, and he pushed on despite the agonizing screams. Walking a lonely road, his body was stained with the lives he took. Exhausted from such a life, he often collapsed on the ground, haunted by demons he killed, questioning why he didn't allow any of them to survive. Their bones clung to him, dragging him down to join them. He deserved it. After all, the hero took 103 lives. Holding the blade away from Ito's neck, Callie orders her uncle to back off and leave them alone. As his gaze doesn't falter for a second, she understands that he has no plans of letting them go. She wanted to explain everything, but as she was left with no choice, the demon lord began casting a spell. Just then, Ito called, saying her uncle is right. Smiling in assurance, he says he's grateful for their kindness, but doesn't deserve to be shown such mercy. After all, too many smiles, including ones he cherished, have faded away because of him. Dragging the weight of his actions and responsibilities, he concludes that he just makes everyone suffer. To be honest, he considers his life absolutely pointless. As he says this, he remembers the moment she deemed him her bodyguard. Waking up from his depressed trance, he questions what he's doing, and is reminded of how he's supposed to take charge of his life. Just then, another set of hands tries to push the blade away. While Ito remembers his dead master, the demon knocks No out with a single punch. Pulling his fist back, he clenches hard, smiling as he aims for Callie this time. The hero remembers his master, calling him her boy, and Callie calling him her bodyguard. He isn't just the hero anymore. In fact, he was never just the hero. He's a big brother, a troublesome student, a friend to Noah, and a helper of the maids. As the demon lord raises her arms to guard, a hand appears by her uncle's demonic face and shoves him far away. Ito has woken up to defend Callie. Above all his other roles, he is her one and only bodyguard. His life isn't just about being a hero. He reminds and convinces himself of this fact. With newfound purpose, Ito has woken up to protect Callie and has shoved her uncle meters away. As he stood with his blade, stretching to get ready for the fight, the hero quickly understood just how powerful he was. Despite knowing he can't win, he charged in, as his goal is simply to keep the demon away from his master. He punches with all he has, letting his mana roar. However, he appears stunned when he sees his fist, completely stopped with one hand and a confident smile. He tries again, now going for the demon's gut, but it isn't even blocked this time, since the uncle doesn't need to. Ito's mouth is left wide open. It's as if he's striking a huge thick wall that's impossible to get through. It's his turn to be hit, and a single punch to the stomach takes his breath away, sending him over the cliff. He crashes to the ground, barely missing the festival goers by the hair. Trying to speak, he fails and realizes that his lungs have been crushed by a single blow. He tries to call for Sagi, but can't even talk. Meanwhile, the demon calls for his sword, and slowly approaches. The terrifyingly strong demon smiled at him, knowing he was no match. A young demon watched, as two others trained the light. The master proudly looked at his student. Meanwhile, the young demon stayed in the shadows, obviously of lower social status. His beaten hands held a wooden sword, and to his surprise, was suddenly replaced with flowers. Looking up, his dark face was illuminated by a brilliant but soft light. A young girl belonging to the dragonkin smiled at him tenderly. Uncle walked forward, calling for sword and catching it. Ito tries to do the same, but can't even speak. The demon notices and tells him not to force himself too much, as he slightly destroyed his lungs and stomach. He isn't sure about monsters like him, but for most creatures, it's a deadly injury. Saying he'll be kind today, he fishes something out of his vest and takes out a health potion. The uncle offers to give it to him, but in exchange has to help him kill Callie. While he used to polish his red blade clean, the uncle thought of one face and one face alone. It's the dragonkin he met as a child, who continued to smile at him with so much warmth. Unable to help but feel forlorn at her memory, he sighs while polishing his blade. At that moment, he saw a young Callie, looking up and giving him a similar smile, but one that was bright and alive. Saying he'll be kind that day, the demon fished a vial out of his vest. It's a health potion, which he offers to Ito. However, in exchange, he has to help him take Callie's life. Still trying to get up, the hero fails and plops down on the ground. Amused by his pathetic state, the demon turned around, saying he'll just do it himself. That said, he leaves with a final warning that he's going to kill Noah, Emmy, and save it as well. Upon finishing his sentence, he feels something on his ankle. Ito bit down on his leg, unable to do much more than that, despite his desperation. A photo of a red-haired woman was surrounded with white flowers. Ito was just a child when his mother died. While he was too young to understand, his sister bawled her eyes out. He wanted to say something to comfort her, so he opened his lips. However, nothing came out, so he sealed them tight, clenching his fist and gritting his teeth as he cried with her. The words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't help her in the end. At that point, he found himself useless. Then again when Sagi died, and again for Anti. Looking at his horrid reflection, he nearly vomited all the time, seeing nothing but a useless man in front of him. Such thoughts filled his mind, following his every step. Now he didn't want to be useless again, and out of desperation, bit Uncle's leg, trying to stop him from killing his loved ones. Just then, his eyes opened wide. For some reason, he found himself lying on a bed, all bandaged up with Sagi in his arms. Ito woke up on a bed, bound with bandages and seeming to have skirted death in his previous battle. As he got up, a voice called him Sleeping Beauty, glad that he's finally awake. Uncle casually watched him from the corner of the room and said they have to talk about something. Meanwhile, the other demons are outside the room, scrambling as they hear voices inside. Looking right at him, the lone adult then asks who it is. Confused by the sudden question at first, Ito realizes that he's talking about his sword. He introduces Sagi, who is cradled in his arms, as his self-declared little sister. Seeing him smile at her, Uncle shares that he also has a similar sword, who's named after his fiancée, who was killed by the Dragon Slayer hero 2,000 years ago. He asks if he remembers Sagi's last words, as she should have heard them before her soul turned into his sword. The young man remembers them clearly. She said it was cold, and that she could taste iron in her mouth. Since her brother was far away now, he was probably going to fight the strong demon with Anti. Knowing she was going to die soon, she chuckles, regretful as she wanted to be with him till the end, brought by the longing to be next to him, at least for one more time. She swore to be his sword, unwavering and true. Through fierce battles, she will fight for him as a silent strength for whatever may come. His sword was forged as she vowed to conquer side by side, determined to help him just one last time. At that moment, he saw Sagi's face, smiling brightly at her big brother. Having just defeated a female demon, Ito walked to his master's dying body. As he held her hand, grieving yet another loss, the demon behind him suddenly began to move. Standing up and brandishing a red blade, she silently walked toward him, with Antai's blade still piercing through her. She raised her weapon, ready to deal the final blow. Finally noticing, the hero turned and realized that he was in a bad spot. His sword was broken and too far away. Deciding to see each other in hell, the demon moved to bring her blade down. However, something else cut through the wind. The enemy was split in half, and Ito's cold and lifeless eyes held his blade tight. With that done, he carried Antai to Sagi, their swords strapped to his back. He saw his little sister, but in a form that's far more gruesome than anyone should experience. While he stared with lifeless eyes, a few voices called out. Turning his eyes away from his sister, surrounded by countless more in the same state, he looked back. There was a crowd of demons. A snarky voice interrupted Ito's moment with his sister, so he looked back, prying his eyes away from her and those who surrounded her remains. One man stepped forward with an axe, acting as the representative of the extremist group of demons. He obviously approached the hero, saying he must be a bit confused right now. Smiling proudly, he brags about killing all the humans there, but complains about their boss putting civilians off limits. Most of them find the rule stupid, as humans started the war by killing civilians in demon territory. For one, they killed his mother, leaving their family without a wife and mother. They did all this just because she was a demon. Now he's decided that it's his turn to take everything. The arrogant man was unable to finish his sentence as a quick kick from Ito knocked his head right off. With his expression still cold and blank, he seemingly finishes the rest of them off. Later, he buries his loved ones, marking their graves with Antai's sword. Piling the soil up, he looked at his hands, stained and filled with marks of hard work, but ended up useless in the end. Taking his weapon, he stared at it for a while, contemplating, and placed the blade in his mouth. However, as he was about to make his next move, he remembered his time with his master and sister, laughing in joy and sharing in life. Moreover, he remembered his real sister in his old world. Ito manages to stop himself and curses as he put the sword down. Walking around the army, the knights couldn't believe he was the hero. Everyone thought he was special, but it was far from the truth. Most stayed away, simply fearing his cold and empty look. While some considered offering to help, they were quickly discouraged, told that the hero can crush them with one blow. Ito couldn't save those who were dearest to him, and in the end, failed to do what was required of him. Letting his sword fall to the ground, he was consumed by self-hate and regret, considering himself a failure of a human. As such, he personally approached the demon lord, begging her to end his suffering. Instead, she offered him kindness and warmth, making sure he was recognized and remained by her side. The demons outside kept trying to listen, but the talking had suddenly stopped. Just then, Noah and Sabet fell to the ground, having bumped their heads on the door that suddenly opened. They tell each other to be careful, and look up to see who opened the door. There, Ito stood proud, having regained the mission to make himself useful and do everything he could to protect those by his side. The hero smiled brightly, apologizing for making them worry so much. Even if he has to swing his sword again, he wants to be a real hero, at least for them. In the human world's dim sky, a familiar woman smoked another cigarette on the balcony. It was Ito's older sister, Yuna, whose eyes seemed as weary as his own. Holding a cup of instant coffee in her other hand, she remembers the batches of coffee her precious little brother always brewed for her. Remembering the painful memory of his loss again, she lets her head hang. As a young girl, she cradled his baby brother in her arms, looking at him with so much warmth and love, and unable to help herself from smiling out of joy. Now her eyes had no more love, but a dark longing and determination. Finishing up, she walks back to her room, thinking about the green light that took Ito away in an instant. Inside, countless sheets of research papers were littered, serving as a testament to her resolve and desperation. Walking past them, she ignored her phone, which was vibrating incessantly due to messages, telling her to open the door and not go through with her plan. The warnings were nothing to her, as she had already decided on what she's going to do. Strong knocking banged on her door, as if ready to break it open. Pressing a few keys on her computer, Yuna proceeded to walk into a cylindrical chamber, still ignoring the cries telling her to stop. The only thing in her head now was Ito's face, looking at her with terrified eyes. The machine began to whir, and the voice outside desperately asked her to turn it off. A woman banged on the door endlessly, unwilling to give up and telling her it's too dangerous. However, it's too late, as purple light, not unlike the one that took Ito, soon began to eat away at Yuna's body. She smiled in satisfaction, having succeeded at getting the chance to follow her brother. Finally exiting the room, Ito was reunited with his friends, and was told that Noah has good news. On the other hand, Callie waited for her uncle by the door and quickly asked what they talked about. Shrugging it off, He says it wasn't anything important, and just a quick conversation between men. Already aware of how he is as a demon, she tells him to stop avoiding it and just explain things. He says he has a bunch of stuff to do, and won't be able to fight for her at the annual ceremony. As an alternative, he convinced the hero to take his place and fight for her name instead. Hearing this makes her lash out, saying only the closest to the demon lord can fight such battles. That said, her uncle stopped being that person for her when Ito became her bodyguard. The demon leaves to take care of business, and says he'll be back in time for Noah's wedding. His words stun her, and she's unable to react at first, trying to comprehend the huge news he just dropped. Mugs of alcohol knocked together, and they raised their drinks in celebration of Ito surviving their terrifying uncle. The maids swoon and fall even deeper in love, blushing as they look at him. Trying to mitigate the reaction, Sabet hands him a robe and asks the hero to put it on. None of them were told that the old demon simply wanted to test the new bodyguard's resolve. While everyone was celebrating, Callie had a stern expression of disapproval on her face. She was staring at her brother and his girlfriend, who were lovingly sharing laughter. Back when they were imprisoned, Noah stood between Emmy and their enemies, slaughtering anyone who threatened them. Pushing through with her injuries and walking around the flaming village, Callie entered a house and was shocked by the sight she was greeted with. Her younger brother's body was gravely injured, but his hand was clinging to his severed ear. The demon lord's eyes quivered in absolute shock, and she looked to the side. There, she saw Emmy hunched over, trembling in pain and fear with her ears cut off. Callie still hasn't moved, struggling to comprehend the implications of what she was seeing before her. That day, an entire town on the border was burned down, leaving nothing alive. In the dining hall, Noah complains about almost wetting himself, not knowing his uncle was just testing Ito. While they happily chattered away, Callie looked at them with a cold and calculating gaze. She hated how her beloved brother was right there, smiling lovingly at his girlfriend. Just then, Noah clapped, calling for everyone's attention. There, he says he has something important to say, and announces that he and Emmy are going to get married after the annual battle ceremony. Blushing and putting his arm over his fiancée, the groom-to-be invites everyone to come. The maids scream in delight, hopping around as they congratulated the engaged couple. Meanwhile, a blue-haired demon smirked with absolute confidence, stepping forward upon hearing that his opponent was going to be a human. They're of the Lawrence family. Kim, the first son of the clan head, smiled in anticipation. Behind him was Saki, the second-born son, who was observably more timid. The annual battle ceremony is one of the biggest events, wherein two ancient demon clans fight in an arena. Involved in this spectacle are the Lawrence family and the Himwari family. While great leaders sat on the throne of both families, the two clans had to choose a servant who would fight as a representative. Now, with Ito and Kim chosen, they should prove they are worthy or die trying. The day has come, and an announcer welcomes the crowd into the holy arena, where two brave warriors will fight. Cheers erupt as Kim steps in, fighting in his father's place. As for the Himwari clan, Noah introduces Ito, who stepped in with his usual blank stare. However, instead of the applause and cheers, the human is met with scrutiny, as the audience is unable to believe the race that's in their midst. It's an awkward moment, but thankfully, the maids are there with light sticks and a banner, fully prepared to cheer for the hero. Sitting beside her fellow clan head, Callie confirms that his son will fight this year. The demon confirms it, sharing that he was equally surprised, as the boy personally asked to fight for him. The demon lord replies with a silent but calculating gaze. The fight will end only when someone dies or gives up. As they count down to the beginning of the fight, Kim called to the human and gave an insulting gesture, saying he's dead meat. When the countdown finished, neither fighter moved immediately. After a while, Kim made the first move, crouching down and holding his sword tight, intending to finish the human in one blow. He swung, simply attempting to unsheath his blade. To his surprise, his movement stopped midway, held still by another hand. Ito appeared beside him in the blink of an eye, spinning back to counterattack with his free arm. Kim's eyes followed his movement, but he could not even react, and simply found himself falling to the ground, struck by the human's elbow. As his face got closer to the hard floor, the image of his brother flashed in his mind. Reminded of his purpose, he put his hands on the floor, and used the momentum to push himself back up. Putting his pride as a talented demon on the line, he delivers a reverse heel kick. Before he could recuperate, the demon quickly jumped back, putting some distance between them. He smiles, impressed by his opponent's capability, at least for his caliber. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how hard he trains, as he'll never be better than someone like him. After all, he was born into a lineage of champions, and the goddess blessing coursed through his veins. Watching Ito take a stand, Kim gloats, saying that with every move and step he makes, it's as if the universe is bent to his will. He charged in an instant, believing in his power, which is a gift that cannot be earned. Believing in his gift that cannot be earned, Kim dashed in, closing the distance in an instant. Brimming with confidence, he smiled at the human while continuing his onslaught, saying he looked all worn out, drowning in a sea of effort. He must be hoping that somehow, in some way, he can close the gap between them. The demon's arrogance gets the better of him, and as he unleashes a barrage of swings, his hand is caught perfectly. Meanwhile, Io had a perfectly open shot and started moving his blade in for the kill. His expression was sinister, showing the experience of someone who's taken countless lives. However, the blade misses on purpose, as the hero pulls his opponent down. Tossed to the ground and facing the dirt once more, Kim's eyes open in shock, finally realizing that the human didn't use mana once in the fight. Io stared at him, his expression blank but his eyes glowing with power. His cold gaze bore into his soul, leaving an unforgettable mark. At that moment, Kim felt fear. A lovely tune from the piano echoed in the school's halls. However, the perfect melody was disrupted as the musician made a mistake, pressing the wrong key. Hearing this, the instructor ordered him to stop right away. The man approached the young one and asked if he really wanted to bring nothing but shame to their family. Looking down, the musician claimed it wasn't so and apologized to his father. Pointing the hard ruler, the man commands his son to show his hands. Forcing him to show the gashes on his wrist, he asks if he knows how much he's invested in him. He lists the things he spent money on, pairing each item with a hard smack with the stick. So much time was spent raising him, but the useless son thanks him with nothing but failure. All he's been doing is bringing shame to him and his entire family. The hits come endlessly, and the young man ends up lying on his bed, in pain but already used to it. He looks at the ceiling with cold and lifeless eyes. Just then, a flash of light started flashing by his feet. Barely sparing it a glance, he looked back up and started crying, finally letting himself feel the pain and exhaustion. Black feathers began to float down, and a voice called to the crying boy, saying they have a mission for him. To his side, a winged being stared down at him, saying he's going to save their world from a big war. Kim questions if he really was scared, but smiled, certain that he isn't. After all, the ruler that endlessly hit his arms was much scarier. Facing the human, he gathered his mana, letting it accumulate in his body. More than that, his little brother was watching, so he couldn't show a disappointing ending. Preparing to let loose, he tells Saki to look in well. The arena was illuminated with light, as the demon's blade blazed with blue lightning. The elder brother tells his sibling to look at the reason, why he'll never cry out of fear again. Driven by the desire to protect his loved ones, Kim's sword was consumed by mana, and a fearsome dragon appeared behind him. After waking up from the fight against Uncle, Ito asks if he has the right to fight for those he loves. More than that, he questioned if he even has the right to love. Despite all that he did, speaking seriously, the demon says humans often forget about one thing. One's past mistakes are not there to define them, but guide their path moving forward. As the dragon made of pure mana bared its fangs, Ito gripped his blade and the dark mana started seeping out when it charged in. Facing it head on, he allowed himself to be consumed. Humans have one thing they're better at than other races, and that's their ability to change. The broadcast audience watched in awe, never having seen such a brilliant and powerful attack. They're surprised to see a human fighting for the Himawari clan, as the entire race is at war with demons. The man calls to Yuna, telling her to look at him, as he might be the one she's seeking. Surprisingly, Io's sister was in the Dwarf Kingdom, saying her brother wouldn't hurt an ant. Walking forward, she goes on about how cute, caring, and amusingly weak he is. Finally, she sees the screen broadcasting the annual battle ceremony. Noah screamed proudly, boasting that his friend had cut through the lightning. Seeing him with her own eyes, Yuna stared in absolute shock, looking as though she'd seen a ghost. 10 years ago, a blue-haired demon fell to the ground during sword practice. Smiling despite the pain, he commends his opponent, saying he has great potential in him. Returning his smile with a boyish grin was Kim. The two praise each other, one as a spectacular student, and the other as a respectable master. As they talked about what to do next time, a knight called to the air, urgently delivering news about his mother. At that moment, it's been 20 years since he started living as a demon in another world. Running to his mother, he recalls how his goddess promised him a life of peace until her supposed sign. Soon arriving at his mother's quarters, he pants and heaved, eager to see what he heard about. Telling him to quickly come to her side, she orders the guards to leave the two of them be, unwilling to let the physician examine the newborn. Feeling something off, Kim cautiously approached, asking if she was okay. With a worried and fearful expression, she looked at her sides, seemingly afraid of being caught. Confirming they're safe, she slowly says that the baby is a girl. In the main family of the Lawrence clan, there is an idiotic tradition saying the first daughter must be killed by the head. With tears in her eyes, Kim's mother begged him to protect his sister. Since he's a strong and talented demon, she pleaded again and again, but he knew that he wasn't stronger than his father. Stone-faced, he accepted her request, deciding that he needed to get stronger. Looking at the small girl sleeping in her mother's arms, he decided to be better and the ideal warrior, all to protect his sister. After his sister's birth, Kim's mother became very weak, so he had to get stronger. Raising her while hiding her gender was not easy, but not impossible either. However, as her body grew, the daunting task gradually became more difficult. In a few years, it would be impossible to hide things from anyone. He looked at Saki's wide smile. Wanting only to keep her safe, he wraps her body in a thick robe, realizing that he had to do something fast. As such, he sought an audience with the head, and asked for a reward should he win the annual battle. For several hundred years, the Himawari clan has won every single battle ceremony. Since defeating them will be a historic moment, he's asking for the historic reward of abolishing a tradition. He trembles but manages to keep his courage. Should he lose, he promises to gut himself right in the arena, a statement Saki hears from behind the walls. Ito is enveloped by the lightning made of pure mana, but emerges completely unharmed, instead glaring at his opponent with terrifying strength. Meanwhile, Kim stared in shock, unable to believe that his strongest attack looked so insignificant. Hysteria began to creep into his mind and body as he imagined the fate awaiting his little sister. Trembling, he questioned what he could possibly do. Saki's bright smile flashed in his head, and it's something he can't let go of. On the other hand, Ito turned to the Demon Lord, asking if he should end his opponent. Callie subtly responded, saying he just needs to make him give up on his own. Affirming the order, the hero placed his sword into the ground. Leaving it there for a moment, he walked to the demon, telling him to give up voluntarily, unless he wants to be forced to. Raising his arms for a fist fight, Io says he doesn't want such a barbaric match. However, Kim has his own reasons and can't afford to lose the fight either. Looking forward, the image of Saki kept appearing in his mind. Right at that moment, he heard a familiar voice. His father's silhouette appeared from behind with his ruler, saying even reincarnation couldn't change him. The thought that he somehow got better in his new life was all a lie, he told himself. After all, the loser stays a loser. After all that effort, Kim was still a loser, silently taking a beating from Ito's bare hands. Nearly knocked unconscious, he's driven to the ground by the head. Pulling him up and readying another hit, the human saw the demon's face. It was pathetically blank, and he couldn't help but stop upon seeing the familiar sight. Kim's face now was reminiscent of his own just some time ago. While he hesitated, the voice of a terrible father spoke to the demon, calling him a loser again and again. He believes his words, having experienced it his whole life. Playing with puppets one time, Kim told Saki a story about a monster attacking but was defeated by her brother. Remembering her bright smile that time, Kim's hand twitched with a last sign of life. Just then, power and mana sputtered out of his wounds, indicating an impending explosion. Kim knows his next act is unforgivable. A concentration of mana spewed out of his hand. The demon, on the verge of being beaten, had a final burst of energy. Right now, there is only one way, and he will have to live with the guilt forever. Lightning crackled, coursing through his entire body and boring holes in his skin. Pushing the hero away, he manages to break out of Ito's grip, but his hand had exploded from the inside. If it's for Saki's safety, and for the sake of keeping her smile, he's willing to do anything. Planting his feet into the ground, he turned to the clan head seats. His father looked him in the eye. There was a flash of blue light, and the audience gasped, unable to do anything but stare in shock at what they'd just witnessed. The warriors were beside their clan heads. One protected his master, while the other ended his father's life. With deadly intent and determination, Kim drove his hand deeper. Kim finally wakes up after replenishing his energy. He looks down and sees Saki resting in his arms. Ito is standing by the wall and notices that he has finally regained consciousness. His little sister hugs him, grateful that he has finally woken up. Seeing him in a better state, Ito turns to leave the room. However, Kim stops him and asks how things are with the Lawrence clan. The hero mentions that there was some conflict after his fiasco. Fortunately, Callie helped manage the situation, and in the end, his mother was able to handle it. Hearing this, Kim then asks about his mother's condition. Ito answers that she still feels weak but is getting better. He then states that Kim should recover quickly since the clan needs a leader. After he annihilated his father, he became the new head of the Lawrence clan. Ito is inside his cell, exercising his body. After stretching, he washes his face. He looks at his reflection in the water and then suddenly dunks his face into the bucket. He flashes back to the king's evil grin. Inside his castle, the king welcomes the chosen hero, claiming that he must be honored to save the kingdom. The student is thrilled to hear this and states that he is ready for the role. The king smiles at him and offers to check his mana level first. The boy places his hand over the mana sphere, and the magic ball glows under his touch. The king continues to smile and can tell that the summoned boy possesses fire magic. However, his power is only at a medium level. The king cannot accept someone so mediocre, so he orders his assistant to finish the boy. His smile does not falter as he calls for the next candidate for the hero role. A dying man kills the last dragon that had been plaguing a village. As a hero, he saved many people from being exterminated by dragons. Breathing his last breath, he keeps telling himself that he was the hero. As he closes his eyes, all he can think about is the cold and the loneliness it brings to his soul. When he regains consciousness, he is awakened by his sister, Gina, who tells him that breakfast is ready. She urges him to leave the bed since everyone is waiting for him at the table. Rio remains immobile for a while, trying to make sense of what is happening. He is confused, wondering who the man named Rio is that she is calling. He questions whether he is inside another man's body. It feels strange that he can move again, and that he is not dead. He looks around and realizes that he is still in his original world, yet he is occupying someone else's body. He contemplates giving Rio back his body when someone calls out to him and invites him to the dining table. His father tells him that he made his favorite donuts for breakfast. As he looks at them, he sees Rio's family happily setting the table together. His own life flashes through his memory, and the cold and loneliness send chills through his body. However, at this moment, all he feels is warmth and happiness. He apologizes to Rio, telling the man he never once met that he is sorry for wanting to keep his body and his life. Meanwhile, the god watches intently from his monitor and seems dissatisfied with what he is seeing. A young dragonkin is crying. He hugs his family, who are about to be killed by a dragon slayer. The mother begs the man to spare her children, but the man mercilessly tightens his grip on his sword. Meanwhile, Rio is sleeping on the couch while Jenna watches an isekai anime with him. Seeing him spaced out, she smacks him on the head. He tries to focus on what they are watching, but he comments that it is not a fun show. She reminds him to relax a bit since it is just a tacky anime meant to be watched while passing time. Seeing the expression on his face, she tells him not to take it seriously because it is not that deep. He just needs to turn off his brain and watch. He apologizes to his sister, who only looks at him and pauses. Letting it go, she tells him to get comfortable on the couch and just be glad that he is with his sister. He smiles warmly at her and tells her that he is happy. Keeping her eyes on the television, she comments that he has been acting strange lately and hopes that he is okay. Rio has lived his 17 years of life with no girlfriend, no friends, and no social skills. The only person close to him is his sister. He was bullied in school, so he tried to summon a hero to defeat his bullies. One of the steps written in the boy's notes is to ask a goddess for permission, but he wonders which one. There are many goddesses in their dimension. If he cannot summon a goddess, he will make it happen himself. Even if he cannot give the boy back his body, he will make up for doing what the boy wished for when he was alive. He then leaves Rio's bully beaten on the ground. It has been a year since he has been living as Rio, and he has never felt this peaceful before. Sometimes, he wonders what is going on in the world where he was a hero. He just wished that humans lived there without the threat from the dragons anymore. He and his sister are inside a comic shop and choosing what to buy. While he is busy reading a comic book, Jenna exclaims that she found a good one and that they can pay for it and go home to read and watch another anime. Suddenly, she screams, panicking this time. When Rio shifts his attention to her, he finds her slowly vanishing. He then flashbacks to the moment when the same phenomenon happened to him. It was just a normal day playing with his father and having a nice picnic with his family when he disintegrated and was transported into another world. He wears a shocked expression on his face while looking back at his sister, who mirrors his expression. This cannot be. The same tragedy from the past is happening again. Wanting to save his sister, he grabs her hand, but it is too late since they are both transported before the wicked king. The mad ruler exclaims that they are chosen to serve his kingdom and that they should be honored. He is thrilled to see that there are two heroes instead of one. As they are about to measure his power, Rio contemplates the different ways to get to another world. First is the accidental reincarnation. Second is the reincarnation by the choice of one of the gods. And the most disgusting way is being summoned as a hero. He was like that in his past life, and right now, he is being summoned again along with his sister. Gina puts her hand over the mana ball and the secretary announces that she is a high-level water magic user and that it is very rare. Hearing this, the king is delighted since water magic is quite useful if she learns how to use it. Next, they order Rio to try and measure his magic. He places his hand over the ball and it glows under his touch. He has a high-level fire magic. The king then declares that the two of them will be the saviors of his kingdom. Meanwhile, Rio panics upon knowing that his magic is fire instead of dark mana. The mana hearth is tied to his soul and not the body. He should have dark mana and not some kind of fire magic. His sister then taps him and excitedly relays that they will explore the world. Seeing her excitement, he agrees to go with her. Callie is walking inside her castle when she sees Ito sitting by himself and watching the bright moon above him. She sits beside him and comments that she is late today. She shares that she sent out Noah's wedding invitations and helped the new leader of the Lawrence clan. Exhausted, she comments that she needs a clone of her or she will die of overwork, adding that she cannot wait to retire. Ito replies that humans like him usually retire at the age of 60, but he assumes that the demon's retirement age is different. Callie mentions that usually, demons die in battle or otherwise, and that Ito is the main reason why some demons do not retire. Hearing the regret in his voice, Callie points out that he was 14 when he was summoned into their world and thrown into a war he did not understand. And since it was a war, he had no choice but to survive and choose himself. She then gently touches his face and tells him not to worry too much. He averts his gaze away from her, replying that he is already 18 years old. It is Noah's wedding, and everyone cheers for him, wishing for his happiness in this union. Callie is watching her brother tie the knot and flashbacks to a distant memory. It was when she rescued him from humans, and he felt depressed. He did not really want to see people at that point, including her. A girl named Emmy then knocked on his door and offered him some cookies. Noah let her in, and this stirred something inside Callie. She was filled with anger and envy that he was letting in Emmy, and not her, his sister. Instead of being happy that he found a friend during his battle with his traumatic experience, she felt resentment. When she realized her reaction was wrong, that was also when she realized that she had failed as a sister. Emmy is the girl that Noah tried to save and fell in love with. She was the constant reminder of her failure as a sister. Meanwhile, the god is watching closely, and someone higher than him is annoyed that the story is getting boring. It started as a unique one with full of twists, but now it has become boring with too many storylines. The figure is frustrated that it is getting complicated with the arrival of new characters from another world, and it is getting ridiculous. While watching Emmy smile after being married to her brother, Uncle appears and comments that Callie still suffers from a brother complex. Callie gives him a sarcastic laugh, and they both stand there to watch. Bothered by his presence, she asks what he wants from her. He then tells her that an unknown monster is blocking a trade route to the kingdom of the dwarfs. If they do not do something, the front line will be without any weapons, since a sword can easily break. A soldier needs to replace it after almost every intense battle. With this, she asks what kind of help he needs. He replies that he wants Ito, since according to the reports, the monster is immune to magic and even chopping off its head will not kill it. With this, he needs some help from the hero. The dwarfs are only good at digging and crafting, so it is up to them to kill it. Meanwhile, Yuna is in front of a bonfire near her tent, and recalls Ito's face, which torments her so. Ito prepares with Noah and Uncle to go on a mission. Callie tells him not to die and that she will increase his salary once he comes back safe. Meanwhile, Amy reminds Noah to take care of himself and eat well. He has to make sure that he does not come back half dead as usual. Noah smiles at her and replies that he will try. The three of them then set out and wave goodbye to the two women. After seeing them off, Amy tries to escape from Callie, but the demon grabs her and states that they need to talk. Meanwhile, Yuna sets out on a journey with her group. The girl states that in a few days, they will arrive at the shelter village, and they will be able to rest there. Unfamiliar with it, Yuna has a confused expression after hearing about the village. Abi the wizard explains that demons built it for kids who lost everything in the war, and the dwarfs helped the demons build it near the border. So, if the demon kingdom loses, they can at least save some children. Yuna asks if this is even possible since she has read in books that demons are naturally good at fighting and are very powerful. She reminds her that no matter how strong one person is, they can always be outnumbered. Humans can also summon heroes like her brother. Uncle points at the map and notes that monsters usually show up in that area. Noah notices that they travel toward the shelter village and Uncle confirms it's close. He says they should check the village first and mentions that 3 messenger birds he sent never came back. Noah grows uneasy and admits it feels strange, even though the village is supposed to be well protected. He then asks Ito if he has ever fought a monster who is immune to magic, and even cutting off its head won't kill it. Ito admits he once fought a hydra, but adds that it was a sea creature. Hearing that, Noah reacts in shock and asks how he managed to kill it. Ito answers that he didn't, and says the hydra nearly split him from shoulder to stomach. He concludes that it was only thanks to his teacher that he survived, and that killing such a monster feels impossible. Ito notices the stare and asks why they are looking at him like that. Elsewhere, the goddess questions whether adding that monster really made sense, doubting if it fits the fantasy genre. The other pauses then agrees, but adds that a future clash tied to Ito and Yuna's reunion could still be interesting. The goddess beside him hesitates and says she honestly doesn't know, and shares that she enjoys Ito and Callie's interactions and wants to see more of Kim with his sister, blurting out that she also wants to see more of the Dragon Slayer hero inside Ryo's body. The other snaps back in frustration, saying there are already too many plot lines and it's driving him crazy. In a flashback, Noah's voice echoed as he called Ito pathetic, and he wonders how someone like him could ever be labeled a hero. Bruised and filthy, Ito stared ahead, while Noah said that all he saw now was a truly pathetic person. Noah screamed at him, saying a hero should be someone who brought hope and ended the war. Ito's thoughts turned dark as a single word filled his mind, telling his friend to kill him, and admitted that he was already tired. Ito called himself a coward and said he couldn't do it on his own anymore. Suddenly, someone calls Noah's name, waking him up from a terrible nightmare. Still groggy from sleep, Ito tells him that his meat is ready to eat. They sit by the fire as Ito hands the food over. He takes a bite in silence, his tense expression easing just a little. He asks his uncle quietly if the bird sent yesterday still hasn't come back. Uncle points out that it should have returned several hours ago and admits it's already the sixth bird that hasn't returned. His expression tightens as the silence confirms something is wrong. Elsewhere, a messenger bird lies dead in the grass, its body torn apart. Up close, the dead bird's eye twitches weakly as a faint buzz lingers, showing it only died moments ago. The massive tortoise lowers its head on the ground, its thick toes dig in and sink further. From above, the distant village comes into view as the ground path leads straight toward it. Noah mutters that they have finally arrived, his expression turning grim. Noah scans the area and tells his uncle that everything looks normal so far. Uncle's gaze sharpens as he stays alert, sensing something still feels off. Suddenly, someone calls out to him by name, catching his attention. A village girl named Arya rushes forward in relief, saying he is finally here. He recognizes her instantly as she rushes over, already panicking and saying they have a serious problem. Fighting back tears, she explains that 2 children have been kidnapped by something unknown. Hearing this, Uncle's eyes widen and his expression hardens as the urgency sinks in. Not far away, a strange purple trail snakes through the grass, leading into the forest. It clings to Ito's skin, hinting at the threat behind the abductions. The purple tendril slips into his mouth, releasing a faint glow as it takes hold. Ito stands still as the dark energy takes over without him realizing it. The forest path stretches ahead, quiet and undisturbed as the air grows tense. Ito and Noah move forward together. Ito turns his head slightly, unease settling in as he senses something nearby. He suddenly reacts in confusion as he calls out to Noah. He calmly points out the remains of his uncle's birds, prompting Noah to react in shock as dark smoke coils into a shape. A sinister body suddenly appears, while he tells his siblings to be patient as his grip tightens. Meanwhile, crows flock in the sky, signaling a growing tension in the air. Yuna stands outside a wooden house with a body bag on the ground at the edge of the village. The gods suddenly appear, as the goddess one questions whether it's really necessary for them to be here, while the other insists on seeing the fight with Ito in person. The goddess warns that they must be careful, explaining that this world has been classified as a red-grade zone. Still, he dismisses the risk, saying it's dangerous, but Ito isn't strong enough to threaten them, and they will just watch the fight and leave afterward. The goddess reminds him that the last time he wanted to just watch, he nearly died. Unbothered, he explains that the Dragon Slayer hero now only has a fire mana hearth from a free magic pack, adding that only Ito possesses a dark mana hearth from the Forbidden Pack, triggering shock at how she knows his name. Suddenly, Yuna tightens her grip on her gun as she angrily demands to know what the Forbidden Pack even is, and asks how her brother is involved in all of this. Her patience snaps as she yells back, forcing an answer. Meanwhile, the god realizes that Yuna is already inside the village and reacts with interest. He casually remarks that Yuna is one of her favorite characters, noting the gun and its blend of magic and science. He notes that Yuna will also meet Ito soon, and he can't wait to see their reactions. The goddess warns that interacting too directly could mess up the flow of events. Impatient, Yuna snaps and demands an answer as a finger tightens on the trigger. Abi calls out her name, asking who she's talking to as she keeps the weapon aimed. He stares her down and warns that she needs rest or she will lose her sanity. Meanwhile, Uncle moves through the dense forest alone, pushing deeper into the greenery. He explains that the forest is massive, so he sends Ito and Noah to search in a different direction, admitting that the 3 of them aren't enough to cover an entire forest. Growing uneasy, he hopes they can find the kids soon, and starts wondering where they could be. His worry sharpens as sweat beads and a drop of liquid slips from his eye, hinting that something is very wrong. It is revealed that Uncle is a warrior his entire life, wading through thousands of enemies and stepping over corpses without hesitation. But what he sees in the forest as he raises his head is different, something far worse than battle. His eyes widen as he realizes it was too cruel for anyone to endure. Even Uncle, known as the strongest among demons, couldn't remain calm in the face of what happened. He gasps and mutters about the village, realizing where the horror took place. He suddenly bolts away with urgency. Uncle looks up in shock, wondering what kind of monster could do something like this, noting that not even goblins would mutilate a body so brutally. He realizes that if the creature can kill this easily, it could wipe out anyone in its path, and the village guards would be no more than ants against it. Panic sets in as he tells himself he needs to hurry. Before he can move, a wooden trap snaps shut and slams into his body. In that moment, Uncle does what no hunter should ever do. He loses his composure. Yuna stands outside the village house, waiting quietly by the door. A tense standoff lingers with the gods in her head. She turns aside in silence, her expression unreadable. Yuna convinces herself it was only a hallucination, blaming exhaustion after years of barely sleeping. Arya reassures them that they can stay as long as they want, offering quiet shelter. She warns them that a dangerous monster is roaming near the village, even as demons have already arrived to hunt it down. Arya reveals that the monster has kidnapped 2 children, and their head guard is still missing. She admits she wants to believe the children are alive, but doubt lingers in her eyes. Seeing her fear, Yuna can't say the children are safe, yet decides to stay behind and protect them. She firmly promises that they will protect both the villagers and the children until the monster is slain. Abi warns Yuna that hunting the monster could take an entire month, pressing her about finding her missing brother as soon as possible. Yuna explains that her brother will stay behind to help guard the village. Arya thanks her sincerely, adding that the human children will feel safer seeing another human among them. Yuna's face freezes as the villager notices how happy the children were to see the red-haired boy who arrived with the demons, finding his presence oddly reassuring. As Arya repeats his name in her mind, Yuna is struck after confirming that it was Ito. Noah and Ito move together through the forest, keeping pace as they search. Letting out a tired remark, Noah comments on just how massive the forest is. After saving the children, he casually talks about celebrating with a big party once everything is finally over. As he smiles softly, Noah shares his simple dream of living with Amy in a small house on a quiet hill. He turns to Ito and asks him what he plans to do once the war finally ends. As his steps slow, Ito hesitates and admits he doesn't know what comes next. He falls silent, his expression turning serious as the weight of the question settles in. Suddenly, he recalls the day when Callie declared that he would live in his castle and became his personal bodyguard, vowing that everyone would call him by his name. Ito admits that he wants to know Callie not as a demon lord but as a person. Noah is flustered and blushing as he coughs into his hand, prompting Ito to feel embarrassed. Noah teases him not to be shy and declares that they are brothers now, adding with a grin that he can even share any shameless fantasies about his sister. A sharp cry for help pierces the air, reaching Ito's ear and snapping his attention sideways. His playful mood vanishes as fear floods his face, pleas for help echoing loudly in his mind. He urgently asks if Noah heard it too, and the answer comes without hesitation. Both tense up at once, instinctively breaking into a run as Noah urges them to hurry. A sudden boom explodes through the forest, confirming that something has gone terribly wrong. A sudden blast echoes through the forest, making them freeze as the realization hits that an explosion just went off. Without wasting time, they split up, deciding Noah will rush to the village while Ito heads out to save the children. Reaching a clearing near a cave, Ito stops and senses that this is the place he's been looking for. He steels himself, fully aware that danger is waiting just ahead. He steps onto unfamiliar ground, his boots crossing a thin line as the air suddenly feels tense. Smoke and cracked stone come into view, making him freeze as he realizes something detonated here. His eye widens in alarm, the thought forming instantly that this could be a trap. A sharp hissing sound echoes behind him, confirming he isn't alone. He turns with a stunned expression, barely managing to mutter in disbelief at what's happening. In the darkness, a body lies motionless amid scattered debris, the aftermath of the blast finally revealed. Ito's eyes widened in pure shock, realizing the situation is far worse than expected. The force of the explosion sends him crashing violently through the air, his body tumbling helplessly. Gripping his weapon, he sprints forward without hesitation, pushing himself toward the fight ahead. Ito stands amid lingering flames, his expression sharp as he faces the aftermath of the blast. Nearby, the mystery man lies on the ground beside the remaining explosives, barely conscious after being caught in the explosion. Someone calmly remarks how impressive the explosion was, his tone controlled and observant. He reveals he never used magic, explaining that this is why the explosive went undetected and the child couldn't be saved in time. Shadow Man coldly breaks down the crude materials used as yellow rocks from a nearby volcano mixed with charcoal, seashell powder, and bat dung, which show the blast was purely man-made. Shadow Man emerges from the smoke, calmly announcing that they have been waiting for Ito all along. His red eyes glow as he smiles eerily and calls Ito their hero. Dark energy coils around Ito's arm as he grips a strange device, its presence radiating danger. In an instant, a violent surge of purple energy crashes down as Ito slams towards Shadow Man with overwhelming force. The ground-level view lingers on a planted foot, signaling the start of a direct and deadly confrontation. His expression tightens, shock and concern flashing across his face as he realizes what just happened. Nearby, the mystery man still lies motionless in the darkness, explosives scattered around her. Without hesitation, Ito grips his sword firmly, his resolve hardening as he prepares to act. He walks forward alone through the lingering smoke and light, moving toward the center of the danger. Dark stains soak into the grass, the ground still marked by what just happened. Something moves beneath the soil, dirt shifting as a presence stirs and slowly rises. Ito narrows his eyes, unsettled as he senses something deeply wrong. Shadow Man emerges again, mocking him by pointing out that the girl he's worried about is already dead and questioning why he's hesitating. Anger flares as dark energy coils around Ito, his voice sharp as he shuts Shadow Man down and finally calls him a monster. A close-up of the monster's face shows its twisted grin as it speaks with chilling confidence and accuses Ito as a monster too. Dark energy flickers around Ito's feet, staining the ground as Shadow Man claims that only a true monster could understand such cruelty. The grass lies disturbed and silent, the tension hanging heavy as the threat fully reveals itself. Power erupts from Ito as he delivers a powerful kick against the monster, determined to break himself if it means saving others. A blinding beam shoots straight upward from his strike, tearing through the forest in a single overwhelming surge. The explosion blooms at its peak, swallowing everything in a burst of light. While severely injured, Shadow Man recalls the past and reminds Ito of a mission long ago when soldiers were trapped in a dungeon full of demons. Stunned, Ito hears himself called the hero, wondering how Shadow Man could know that he is the one he means. Shadow Man clutches his head and reflects aloud, wondering why someone from another world could be so selfless. He questions the choice to put oneself in danger for people who were complete strangers. In a flashback, a giant monster suddenly roared, its distorted face filling the panel with rage and confusion. Its towering figure loomed in the darkness, its massive body radiating pressure as it stood before Shadow Man. He looked up in shock, fear and resolve mixing in his eyes as he faced the overwhelming threat. The impact shook the ground, forcing both fighters into motion as the clash erupted. In the chaos, a blade was drawn, its edge flashing as resolve hardened in an instant. Suddenly, a red-haired man came to his rescue without hesitation. Young Ito pushed him away from the monster who was about to kill him. He then brought him to his home, and from the darkness, he could see that the hero was being loved by his comrades as they treat Ito's injuries from the fight. Shadow Man looked at them, his body wrapped in wounds, yet his gaze remained steady. His eyes tightened, recognition and tension surfacing in silence. He turned his gaze upwards, seeing a glowing hand lowered into view. The hand pressed gently against his head, flooding his body with a strange and overwhelming power. His eyes snapped wide open, the pupil burning red as something awakened deep within him. A crimson core formed, pulsing steadily, as his new power fully took shape. Presently, Shadow Man has always wondered why a child from another world could be so selfless. He recalls that when he was still human, he could never understand that kind of sacrifice. Now, he claims he finally understands, his tone calm as the scene shifts. He tells him that every time he throws himself into danger, it isn't pure heroism, but a way of saving himself. As the focus drops to the battered body, he concludes that this desperation is like begging, as if he is screaming without words. A weak plea breaks the silence as Shadow Man mocks Ito when he begged for attention. The hero looks up, confused, asking what he is even talking about. Shadow Man's words hit hard, triggering a violent reaction as dark energy surges and the hero staggers back in pain. In a blur of motion, Shadow Man closes the distance and restrains him before he can recover. Holding Ito firmly, Shadow Man questions whether he truly wanted to dig up a useless corpse, then calmly insists he is only trying to help as he calls him a hero. Shadow Man slams Ito on the ground repeatedly as he repeats the hero's previous pleas for attention, love, and desire to never be forgotten. Watching from a distance, the gods remain silent as Shadow Man continues to inflict pain on Ito. A chilling thought follows as Shadow Man questions Ito that if no one needed saving anymore, What would even remain of the hero? The goddess watches silently, her calm gaze unreadable as everything settles. Meanwhile, Yuna looks down at her hand, realization and dread sinking in at once. She curses under her breath, her expression tightening as the weight of what happened hits her. Staggering back amid smoke and debris, she clutches her head and struggles to steady herself as the aftermath closes in, until Abi urgently calls out to her. He rushes over asking if she's alright, and she answers that she's fine despite the chaos around them. Yuna snaps back to focus, demanding to know what the hell just happened and where the explosion came from. Abi admits he doesn't know, adding that he didn't sense any magic before the blast. Growing uneasy, Yuna turns aside and asks where Mimi, Arya, and the kids are. A sharp spark flashes at the edge of Yuna's vision, triggering a sudden realization. She recognizes the gunpowder smell as her eye sharpens with understanding. She reflects that this world revolves around magic, and its scientific progress barely reaches a fraction of her own world's level. She recalls that gunpowder is made from charcoal, sulfur, calcium, and refined potassium nitrate, the last often extracted from decomposed waste after long filtering. Remembering how it was discovered by accident in her world, Yuna concludes grimly that science is simply trial and error, hurling ideas until something explodes. In a flashback, Yuna repeatedly tested crude mixtures, kneeling beside a bottle as small experiments failed one after another. Again and again, the setup ignited violently, blasting upward as she flinched but kept going. Another attempt erupted with a deafening boom. Her face tensed as the blast proved it still wasn't right. She pushed through millions of failures, refining the process through repetition and pain. Yuna reflected that science was hurling countless attempts at different speeds and angles, hoping that out of a billion tries, one finally worked. At last, one of Yuna's experiments held together, the reaction stabilizing instead of exploding. Presently, she reflects grimly that the world hasn't suffered enough trials yet, realizing this world still lacks gunpowder. Overcome with guilt, the man behind the explosion apologizes softly, admitting that he was forced into it. Meanwhile, Shadow Man suddenly moves, his arms snapping out with unnatural speed. His hollow eyes display after Ito restrains him. In the next instant, Ito delivers a violent impact against Shadow Man. Pain explodes as his mouth opens in a raw scream, shock overtaking his face. The force sends him crashing backward, his body slammed down into the ground as the blow fully connects. Shadow Man barely regains his footing as he slides backwards from the impact. Gritting his teeth, Ito steadies himself and locks eyes with him as tension fills the clearing. Shadow Man lets out a crooked grin, mockingly praising the move as if amused by the exchange. He admits there's little time left, revealing this body is too weak to hold both itself and its siblings. His voice echoes with desperate longing, chanting about freedom as it stares past him. Ito frowns, pressing for clarity as Shadow Man's words only deepen the unease. The sword suddenly hums in response, its blade vibrating as if acknowledging the name spoken aloud. Tilting his head, the Shadow Man calmly claims that death isn't an option for him yet. Ito raises his weapon, confused, as Shadow Man hints that something far bigger is already being prepared. Standing alone, the battered body stares ahead in silence, its intentions still unreadable. Shadow Man suddenly raises a finger and singles out someone important, his tone shifting as it emphasizes her. With manic conviction, he declares that they won't let him die, insisting he deserves that twisted honor as Ito freezes in confusion. He steadies himself, his expression hardening as he prepares to face what's about to unfold. Shadow Man admits he enjoys talking to him, but coldly adds that he doesn't have much time to spare. Without warning, his body lunges forward and moves suddenly with aggression. Dark tendrils erupt from the ground as Shadow Man rushes in and closes the distance at frightening speed. Ito stiffens in shock, eyes widening as he realizes the attack is already upon him. A blinding strike crashes down from above, signaling the start of a brutal clash. Suddenly, a familiar voice tells him to stay calm, steadying his breathing instead of panicking. He takes a single breath, drawing the air in slowly as he regains control of his body. He steps forward, planting his foot firmly on the ground with clear intent. In one smooth motion, he commits fully and channels everything into a single decisive swing. The blade rises and comes down with precision, the clash ringing sharply as steel cuts through the air. Ito locks his gaze forward, sensing something guiding him. A voice echoes, promising that he will soon understand the path ahead. Shadow Man drifts through the darkness, trailing a glowing current of power. Ito's foot steps down hard onto the grass, grounding that presence in reality. His eye snaps wide as something unfamiliar ignites within it, the glow turning sharp and unnatural. In the darkness, small points of light flicker into existence, gathering like sparks drawn to a core. His eye flares fully, saturated in violet light as the power stabilizes and locks into place. His desperate voice cuts through the moment as he screams for his teacher. Back at the village, the mystery man hesitates, the words catching in his throat as he admits that he forced him to act. The smoke thickens around them, and confusion sets in as the implication sinks deeper than the explosion itself. Turning her head, Yuna realizes that someone else was pulling his strings. The mystery man explains that he swore he would never hurt her sister, believing that promise justified everything Shadow Man did. After a long pause, Yuna steels herself, only to be confronted with the question that cuts the deepest as she asks about the children he killed. She admits she can't judge him for what he's done, but says she wouldn't hesitate to do the same if it were her own brother. Yuna reminds him that the past can't be undone, yet what matters now is the choice he makes next. After a brief pause, she asks him to tell her everything. Yuna asks where the monster is now, promising that they will hunt him down and make sure no more children are harmed. She adds that Ito is already searching for the monster, and if she finds it, she believes she'll finally find her brother too. The mystery man immediately rejects the idea, shouting no as fear and disbelief flash across his face. He insists the monster promised to bring all the dead children back to life, claiming he only needs time to defeat Ito. Hearing this, Yuna freezes in shock as the words sink in when he tells her that they need to help the monster, but the plea is cut short by a sudden gunshot that drops him mid-sentence. Without hesitation, Yuna raises her gun, eyes steady and unwavering, ending the moment before it can go any further. She keeps her weapon trained forward, her expression cold and resolute. Confusion flashes across the mystery man's eyes as he stutters, caught between fear and denial. He snaps back sharply, asking if she didn't hear him, then states flatly that he plans to resurrect all the dead children here. He insists he won't just resurrect the children here, claiming his plan goes far beyond this place. He raises his hand and declares that Shadow Man will revive people all over the world, making them stronger so every race can protect themselves. Watching Yuna's reaction, the mystery man realizes she may be related to Ito, and quietly admits he understands how painful this must be. He argues that a single sacrifice could save countless lives, framing it as a necessary cost. He pleads desperately for Yuna to at least pity the children, insisting that one life traded could mean salvation for many. In silence, Yuna remarks that her brother's death would resurrect the children killed here. The thought finally settles in, and Yuna quietly starts to piece the meaning together. Her grip tightens and her eyes remain cold, declaring that the kids can remain dead instead. Meanwhile, Ito's eyes sharpen, glowing with resolve as her emotions finally harden into a decision. In a flash, motion cuts through the air, signaling the moment he commits. Ito surges forward, purple energy wrapping around him as he charges ahead without hesitation. He lunges forward, violent energy surging around him as he commits to a full power strike. Shadow Man raises his arm up until something snaps behind him. Ito's eyes sharpen, his focus absolute as he adjusts his timing mid-charge. His grip tightens on the weapon, purple energy coiling around his hand as the decisive clash is about to land. Ito charges in, violet energy spiraling violently around him as the Shadow Man reaches out to counter, until the sword closes in his neck. Calm and unsettling, Shadow Man declares that the attack won't be enough to kill him. In a flash of red light, the blade slices through, silhouettes colliding as the decisive blow lands. Ito waits for the pieces of the Shadow Man to take form again. He sees that the head is whole again, so he jams it again and again with his sword. The two gods are watching. They see that Ito now can't kill the monster that way, but that he is just letting off steam. The goddess asks why the Shadow Man wants Ito, but the god replies that he can't tell her. Spoilers. The goddess is frustrated that the god gave a character a forbidden skill again, and that they will be appearing in court again tomorrow because of it. Back at the village, Arya has just woken up. She is horrified to see the deaths all over the place. She then sees that Yuna is still firing at the mystery man. Despite the rapid fire, the man asks Yuna why she puts one life as more important than everyone else. She does not answer and just continues firing. Yuna asks Abi to find the survivors while she is busy with the mystery man. Abi follows her order and leaves. Suddenly, the mystery man turns into black flame. Elsewhere, Noah is looking at the log that hit him. He sees that the edge that hit him has magic stones on it, and realizes that the stone's mana is now in his body. He can feel that he can't cast spells because of it. He praises the enemy for being creative. He reviews that his body is also damaged and can sense that he can't even use mana to strengthen his muscles. He hates that he will be in pain while sprinting to the village. Meanwhile, Ito continues to repeat jamming his sword at the Shadow Man's head. A piece of the monster turns into a shadow tendril that sneakily grabs a magic stone hiding under the bushes. The tendril then slowly walks towards the distracted Ito from behind. It then jams the magic stone at his neck, injuring Ito. The Shadow Man reforms back and tells Ito that he needs to go help his minion in the village. Ito is grabbing his neck wound and is too weak to move any further. The Shadow Man tells him that Ito will experience even more pain. The mysterious man Yuna is up against turns into a giant monster made of black fire. His presence is so hot that Yuna finds it so difficult to breathe, and she feels like even the blood inside her is boiling. She remembers the pain the day Ito disappeared right in front of her, and declares that the pain she is feeling right now is nothing compared to the day she lost him. Yuna faces the monster. Determined not to die, knowing she has come so far to find her little brother, she backs off the fire monster and is trying to think of a strategy to get to the gun-like weapon she has on the cart she rode in. She kicks some dust towards the fire monster to let it absorb the heat and give her a moment. She runs towards the cart, but the monster reaches her when she is about to get to the weapon. Yuna remembers the wake of her mother and how she cried her eyes out. Ito was still a little boy, staring as he did not know how to react to the death. The siblings returned to their apartment. This time, the place felt empty and sad. Yuna asked Ito if he wanted some pizza, and the kid nodded with approval. Yuna was smiling, trying to hide that even pizza was costly for them. She ate one piece from the pile, then gave the rest to her brother. Yuna closed her eyes to rest while her brother ate. She was, however, awakened by her brother, who told her that his head hurt. Yuna realized that he was sick and sent him to bed. She was worried, not knowing what to do. She tried to call their mom on the phone. The phone had already rung many times before she remembered that her mother was already gone. In the present, Yuna worries that she is about to die without even seeing the face of her little brother again. Just as the fire monster is about to swallow her whole, Noah blasts through its giant head. Noah tells the fire monster that fire is nothing to him since his sister is a fire mage and that he has a lot of experience dealing with it. The monster just roars. Noah tells him that it is about to die. The fire monster creates a fireball in its hand. It throws it at Noah, but the man effortlessly swats it away. He teases the monster by saying he has no time to play around. The monster can only say garbled words as a reply. It lets Noah understand that the man inside the monster is long gone. He tells the creature that his sister never uses the heat he is using because it causes fatigue, slower thinking, and impaired judgment, all while kicking the ground. The kick creates a crack pattern around the monster. Abi appears and binds the monster with his summoned magic chains. Yuna uses the opportunity to reach for her cannon on the cart and fire at the creature. Meanwhile, the Shadow Man is enjoying the fresh air and is going on a diatribe on how wonderful the world is. He says that the only negative part of it is the humans, demons, elves, and other creatures he views as trash. He says that he hates the gods who watch them suffer most of all. He continues to say that he wants to restart the world because the current one is filled with meaningless war that only happens because the gods want to watch it for entertainment. With a big smile, the Shadow Man says that he hates everyone. He sparks with pink light that envelops his body. The two gods are watching. The god says that he will not stop what is happening, even if it is easy for them to do so. The goddess allows it, but warns him that granting a character the ability to reforge souls is absolutely illegal. Uncle and Noah bury the 135 children who did not survive the monsters. Noah warns the others that there is still one more monster they did not kill, and that it is still in the forest somewhere. Uncle tells him that they have to skip hunting the monster, since their main objective now is to provide a safe place for the 35 children who survived the ordeal. They talk about Yuna and Abi and how even more people would have died if they had not helped them. Noah comments that he finds Yuna weird for speaking words he has never heard of, and the topic she calls science. Uncle realizes Ito is missing and asks Noah where he is. Uncle is surprised to see that Yuna is already behind him to ask him the same question. She demands to know where her brother is. Yuna and Noah search for Ito in the woods. Noah tells Yuna that he still finds it hard to believe that she is Ito's sister since they do not look alike, while he and Callie look almost identical. Yuna replies that she looks like her dad, while Ito looks almost exactly like his mother. She remembers how angry Ito looks in Abi's vision, and she is saddened that her brother no longer looks like the innocent little boy he was 3 years ago. Noah tells her that Ito was different when he first met him 3 months ago. He remembers how depressed the man was, so he is hesitant to tell Yuna more details. He thinks fast while sweating, but he used to love sushi, compared to now, when he hates it. Noah follows up that her brother is still the same guy, but that he is just going through something hard right now. He continues to say that Ito still tries to be the best person he can be by always helping out around the house and lifting heavy equipment, even if it's not his job. Yuna smiles and is happy to hear it. She, however, tells Noah that she is still mad at him for leaving Ito alone. The next thing she knows, she is horrified to see Ito unconscious on the ground with heavy wounds. Ito dreams of the memories of her sister, yet she can only see Yuna's face as a blur. He opens his eyes and wakes up in a bed. He says that he misses his sister. To his shock, he hears someone saying they miss him too. Ito quickly gets up and slowly faces in the direction of the voice. He sees Yuna looking at him. He closes his eyes and opens them again to make sure he is not imagining things. Ito puts his feet on the flooring and slowly walks towards his sister. The worried Yuna tells him that he needs to lie down since he has been asleep for 5 days. Ito suddenly puts his head on her shoulder. There, he cries his heart out. Yuna cries too as the man hugs her. She hugs him back, unable to believe how big he has grown. She smiles, realizing that he is still the crybaby brother she remembered. She lets her head rest on his shoulder, too. She feels the scars on his body and face. She swears that she will never let anyone or anything hurt him again,